Ask the Mayor on KWVE just prior to the July 4th holiday period. Mayor Bob Morgan in with us, and I guess this is the final time we'll be facing off here.
I know.
We do want to continue, and the guy we just saw out in the hallway in the black shirt, he is the guy that'll be doing it from now on.
Well, Doug, it has been an absolute pleasure.
It has.
I think I've been, in one shape or another, been coming down here since 2001.
Yeah, and when your capacity as the college as vice president and campus director out here, I know Dave had you in several times doing that, and I've talked to you, I think once or twice on the education program. So you're a veteran of radio here. You know the drill.
It's an exciting time for you. I mean, it's kind of nostalgic. It's kind of exciting. Yeah. It's like it's like you're going on vacation and you just haven't realized you're not coming back.
Yeah, you kind of wonder, okay, I've been off for 4 days now. Now what do I do? But we'll find something. We'll maybe grease up the golf muscles or something. And
there you go.
Try to see if the back still holds up after all these years, and we'll go ahead to new things. But it's great to have you in for the final program here, and especially going into a holiday, because I know a lot of people like to get out early and hit the road, and
that's okay. Yeah. I wouldn't miss this last one.
Great.
Not at all.
We appreciate it. I might start out with a little bit of the Board of Public Works meeting yesterday. I finally got to one because most of them are on county board days, so it's kind of a scheduling thing there for me. But the Lincoln Street project, 25th to 27th, went by there, I think, a couple days ago, and they're getting pretty close to putting down paving here.
Getting pretty close to putting down paving. They've got most of the edge work done, and we'll be, I think we're hoping next week, again, weather permitting. I always have to say that now, and but they're doing a good job. I think that'll be a nice improvement, and it looks like we've got plenty of time to get that done before school starts.
That's
However, once you get to July 4th, you think the summer's pretty well over. But, we'll have time to get that done, so it won't impede traffic.
It'll be that one time when, you're thinking, well, we like to have rain, but maybe we need to have it hold off a little bit. Just
a couple of days.
Get done with and it's nice that, people are patient who live in that area. Obviously, it's a little bit of an inconvenience going around, but it's nice to have that new surface there. So that's coming up pretty soon. Also, on the armor coat maintenance work, and I can't remember, how many street segments you're doing this year.
Oh, I'm not sure either.
It's a pretty significant amount, I think, but that's coming up here.
I think that's starting next week.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll be moving in, and that doesn't take a long time to recoat the armor coating, but it certainly helps the life of the road. People say, well, because there's 3 different things now you can do: mill and overlay, there's asphalt coat sealing, and then there's kind of a regeneration things that we can all do to roads. All things I learned.
I didn't know.
I'm not a road guy.
That's what we have Jason for.
That's right.
and James,
But between that and the software and technology, they can really study roads and determine which one of those 3 they can do before you have to reconstruct, because armor coating is a lot better than cost-wise than reconstruction.
Yeah. And if I remember right, too, Jason said they were trying a slightly different material this year. I don't know if it's kind of a shale type thing, but it's maybe a little more manageable.
I think it's a little more manageable, a little easier to put down, and I think maybe a little bit less cost.
Yeah. And maybe not quite as much dust like, you sometimes have at the beginning. And,
that's right.
But so look for that, and, of course, people not be able to park for that short period of time on those streets. Less certain is kind of when the mill and overlay street work begins. There's some preliminary work to that, with the intersection ramps and things.
Correct. ADA ramps, intersections, those type of things. So,
Coming up a little bit later then.
It will be coming up a little bit later, but again, those are all the things we got to get done during the summer period. Because you never know what fall, winter will bring around here, will you?
Yeah. Some days, 1 year or 2, you've been able to go all the way into almost December or mid-November, but other years, October rolls around, you get that first big snowstorm, and then it's all over then. So the other big project, and it was an engineering consulting agreement for construction supervision yesterday, and that is the project to take the pipe that's attached to the West Court Street Bridge and drill it under the river.
Put it under the river. That is correct. And I think that's starting very soon.
Probably, yeah. I think Rob said late July for pipe delivery, and then not too far after that. So,
and as the slope goes, I'm sure they'll have to start back a ways and then kind of drill it down. I think that's one of the things that the Nebraska Department of Roads has wanted off that bridge for a long time. And so don't quote me on it. I know at some point in time, and I don't know when because the date keeps moving by the Nebraska Department of Roads, or I should say NDOT. I do know that they're going to replace that bridge. And I don't think that's going to happen in the next year or two. As we get closer to redesigning and moving the Highway 1 block, we hope that we've already broached that subject so that we can maybe do all of that at one time. Instead of 1 year you don't have a bridge and the next year you have another reason that it might be blocked off. And so we're hoping that we can continue to coordinate with NDOT and do everything at one time.
The good thing about this project with the pipe is that court stays open both directions for travel, although you'll have to close First Street because construction in that area.
Got to lay out the pipe, those type of things. And when you think about it, it's probably one of those things that maybe should have been done a number of years ago. I think in this day and age, you don't very rarely see where anybody would put a water pipe on a bridge. And so getting it underground is actually going to be a lot safer for the pipe as well. And
then freeze-thaw stuff, I mean, you're going to, I assume it's PVC. It's not,
I would guess,
the old iron type pipe. That pipe's pretty big on that bridge. It's pretty solidly attached to that thing. So taking it off of there seems like quite a difficulty.
You lift up 5 gallons of water, you just know how heavy that water is.
This is a little heavier than that. We talked about, I don't know if we did on air, but I think it was just in conversation one time, those decorative rails that were put on the bridges there, and you work so hard to get those done, and then when the bridges are redone, what's going to be the outcome there? Do they stay? Do they go? Or how do you see that?
Well, we don't know the answer to that. What we would like is to have them, us kind of be involved with the design process so we don't lose what we've done, because they really are a nice asset to have. However, as you design that from their standpoint, that's a small piece of it. So, if it's not a lot of retrofitting, we would get it in. If there's a lot of retrofitting, we would have to start over.
I was kind of wondering how the design with the walks or trails that go across that bridge, how they'll look too. Because right now they're kind of narrow, but they're I don't know what the new design of it looks like.
I don't either.
Have to wait. Let's see. We have a question here from a caller. It says, who is taking care of the property for the old schools? And they mentioned Lincoln and Paddock. They said they need to be mowed. There's always an observant person.
A good observation. Lincoln and Paddock will be starting to undergo the new housing developments. The construction company is moving in, I believe, next week or the week after. So that will take care of the weeds and those type of things. We will have, Paddock is known as Corral Crossing, and Heritage Heights is where Lincoln School will go. So you'll see a lot of activity there. They'll start at Paddock, do some work, and then kind of why they get, because there's a lot of phases to that. There's there's the water sewer that has to go down, and then you've got the roads. And so they'll be bouncing between the two. So that's why you're probably not seeing a lot of mowing right now, is because we know that the construction company is going to be moving in, and when it's all said and done and it becomes a housing development until we sell the lots, it will be the city.
And Rob Merrow said yesterday some of the water work's already being done at the Paddock Lane site, so that's going in right now. So
they're working on the water sites right now. So
it doesn't really make much sense to do a lot of mowing of vegetation when it's going to be leveled off anyway, and you're going to be doing a lot of work.
It will look different between now and April. That is for sure. Good question, though.
Yeah, it is. One last thing from the Board of Public Works meeting, a consultant being hired, and one you've worked with before, and the board has before, on an electric rate and cost study well into the future. I know you try to reserve capacity and know where your electricity is coming for a set number of years, I think to 2030, but then beyond that, what happens?
Well, yeah, we're set until 2030. There's going to be some new regulations that come out, and it's going to increase the amount of capacity that we have to buy. And if you think about capacity, it's actually extra energy in case you have a crisis. So I kind of look at that term, it's kind of like buying insurance. The best example in 2021 when we had the vortex, you could see that electric went off the charts because everybody needed to heat their homes across the country. And so if you don't have enough capacity, you can't get that power into your system because it's already bought for someplace else. And I believe they're increasing it, I think the capacity stage that you have to have by about, I think it's 10% more. And what we're seeing right now across the country is we're seeing an increase in electricity and the price of electricity. It continues to go up. We've been very fortunate to be able to hold it steady for a long time. I know we're going to have to look now at rates as we move forward through 2030 and prepare ourselves for that increase in capacity in 2032. Sounds like 7 years is a long time, but it's not. So we have to figure out a way to capture the ability to have that capacity when needed and make sure we follow the federal guidelines.
A few years ago, when you completed the switch to a new wholesale supplier, and then you got power from several sources, whether that be renewable or more traditional ways, and I can only tell just by watching my own electric bill, and I'm not a huge power user in my place, but I have noticed that I can't believe how much less I'm spending now than I did maybe, say, 15, 20 years ago, 25. It's noticeable to me. So if me, a small power user, you look at a bigger power user, that's got to be a fairly significant savings.
It is. It is. We're very, very fortunate. The decision to go off on our own was a very good decision. I'll be the first one to say I was hesitant, and I think I voted no on that because I thought of the catastrophic losses. When you have a storm. But now that I understand there's enough mutual aid, whether it's NPPD, OPPD, we go and help other people. That's not a big fear. But we have had the ability to really sign contracts through 5 or 10 years. Well, this is actually probably a 10-year contract to continue to save folks money on their power or their electric bill because it is really reasonable. And I'll be the first one to say it's probably going to have to start creeping up because as we buy power, it's going to cost us more money in the future.
Okay. Before we take a break here, I'm going to skip down a little bit because it's kind of related to this. You have a July 9th meeting coming up at, I think, the Beatrice Public Library with Nebraska Public Power District, who is considering like a list of 16 communities for the potential location of these what are called small nuclear reactors, SMRs, as a means of providing another source of power. Understand what they're just trying to get input from the community. What are the questions? And
I think it's two things. I think they want to get input from the community, and more importantly, I think they also have an education piece. Because when you think of nuclear power, you think of Cooper Power Station. These are actually module reactors that go in the ground. They don't typically take water. When you think about in the nuclear power plants when they shut down to clean up, there's a lot of changeover and those type of things. These are just modular units. They go in the ground when they're needing to be recharged or whatever they do. They pull them up and put the new module down. If they need to get more energy, they can put 1, 2, or 3 more modules in there. So it's cleaner, it's safer, and it's a great opportunity. I think we have to do something as we continue to use more and more electricity. And so they're probably going to, A, want to get some public input, B, some education, because it is not like the smokestacks that you have. It's a lot safer for them. I think the biggest question that everybody's asking is how long will it take before you could have these SMRs in place and have power? That's going to take some time. That could be 2040 and beyond. But they have to look down the road that far.
Have you been given a date by when that list of 16 would be narrowed down and whether you're included in that or not? Or
we have not.
Yeah, just that's
a
stay tuned thing.
Yeah, that's stay tuned. That's their they're out there looking for that, and so we'll see where we're at.
All right, back with more on Ask the Mayor with Mayor Bob Morgan in just a moment. Back on Ask the Mayor today with Beatrice Mayor Bob Morgan. I guess I do want to kind of backtrack. It was more a discussion from yesterday's meeting.
Sure.
About some of the large items that you need to acquire, like for substations, the big transformers, the big vehicles, the bucket trucks, the jet vac trucks, the fire trucks and things. Ever since COVID, of course, delivery was really a problem, but it's eased a little bit, but in some cases, not really.
No, we still have some problems. And I think, I'll use the power example that we just talked about. Mm-hmm. As we look at the country needing to have that insurance of more capacity, you've got a lot of people who are either rebuilding their substations, adding their substations, or thinking about new ways to get power, which would probably mean new power stations. Mm-hmm. What's that going to do is just going to continue to drive people that want all those things more than they do today. Yeah. So you really you're really creating for them a high demand, and they don't have the capacity to create the transformers in a timely manner, and they still takes the time that it does. And so, yes, a lead time could be 3 to 4 years.
Yeah. Is that a budget nightmare for a city like yours? Because you do biennial budget, so you're actually looking out more years than that too.
We are. It causes a couple of issues. Number one, you always want to try to put your expenses in the year that you purchase them. Mm-hmm. Number two is you look at, I'll use BPW electric fund as an example. We have a $750,000 truck that's coming in that we probably ordered 2 years ago. And so all of a sudden you look at our reserve and you see the $750,000 surplus. Mm-hmm. Well, we know that in 2 years it's going out the door to buy that truck. But on paper, people wonder why you have that money just sitting there. And you're going, well, we really can't touch it because we know that if I spend it today and the truck comes in, then I just got to borrow money for that truck. Mm-hmm. And so, it is one of those things that you have to kind of look at. And I think any good organization, and one of the things we're looking at is how do we come up with a policy for cash reserves? Mm-hmm. Because as we continue to have this situation, whether it's an ambulance, a fire truck, a vac truck, or a bucket truck, all those can be 3 to 5 years out. Mm-hmm. And as you look at the transformers and those type of things, you either have to figure out who can rebuild them or how to get a new one. And
aside from those purchases, you need the reserve anyway for the unforeseen.
Absolutely.
If you have a big disaster, or a big storm, or a lot of damage done.
We've talked about a cash reserve several times in my history on the city council and mayor. I think you'll see us at least take a opportunity to bring to the council, hopefully in the near future, a cash reserve policy for all of our entities with BPW.
I see. Okay. Much lighter topic here.
Okay.
Sertoma Astro Park Playground update. I understand, at least from your Facebook page, what the equipment is in.
Yes,
on that.
absolutely.
So what's next? What's kind of the timing on that? Have you heard?
I don't know for sure, but I know that they want to get to it as soon as possible, and so they'll be working on that. And Sertoma, that Astro Park with the partnership with Sertoma, has turned out to be a really nice neighborhood park between the splash pad and the equipment.
It's got a nice picnic shelter there, restroom facilities, and
if you take a look at a neighborhood park, that's kind of a good model for other cities to follow.
Yeah, you could pick that up and drop that down in any neighborhood, and people would be really happy about that. And of course, they have the splash pad there too, which gets really popular this time of year, as warm as it can get. And driven by there a couple of times, and that's well used by the neighborhood and others from around the town too.
Absolutely, so. It's a great asset. A great partnership and a great asset.
And also despite probably the slow start because of the rain and cool weather on Memorial Day weekend, went by the water park yesterday. Wow, that place, a lot of people there. So I'm assuming attendance has probably picked up over the
attendance has picked up. And you think about a water park, we think about that as our new water park. Mm-hmm. but it's ranging up to about 25 years old now.
25, 26 at least.
So, we'll do a study because we know within the next 10 years we're going to have to do something. And that's one of the things that I've learned. If you don't start planning now for something 10 years down the road, probably going to be tough to get it done.
And you kind of did that twice, I guess, kind of on a fire department, because I know there was a study long ago what you're going to do there. And then it kind of sat there for a while because it was a major project. And you finally, that got accomplished, and that's being paid off. But it won't be too long that will be paid off then.
That's absolutely correct. I mean, we've made some really good progress. Sales tax has come in at target or above. So we hope that, with any luck at all, we'll be able to pay it off a little bit early.
Okay. Let's see. City Council next Monday. I'll have to miss that one. Sorry. And all others, I guess, as we go on. But I know with the holiday stuck in there toward the end of the week, do you know any of the items on the agenda that might be coming up? Or,
well, a lot of what you covered on BPW will be moved that way. I know there's an ordinance there that's going to take me 5 minutes to read probably. There's codes, there's electric codes, there's plumbing codes. We're on 2015 codes, 2018 came out, and now we've moved. We're gonna have to move to 2021 code.
I see.
And so I know we have to update that. That'll be an ordinance. Of course, there'll be probably a resolution for the electric rate cost study and a few of those type of things. It's not a real heavy agenda, but it's a lot of things that just have to get done.
Yeah. We're in the midst of fireworks season here with the 4th of July. You heard a lot of fireworks going off in your neighborhood, or has it been kind of quiet yet?
No, it has. It was. I'm surprised. I mean, I didn't hear a lot early. I did hear a couple that were probably outside the range, but that's going to happen. But I did hear some last night. I was watching TV, but it was,
You kind of expected.
Well, and it was, right around that before the time of 10 or 11 or whatever the shutoff is for there. Yeah. Now I think as we come up, we've extended that to midnight.
Yeah, you got a little bit later time tonight and on the 3rd
and the 4th.
So if you have things left over, it really starts popping.
That's right. That's right. And I think tonight, what is it? The Rotary folks have their big fireworks display at the school.
Yep.
So it's a great opportunity if you're looking for something to do tonight to look at that project that they've taken now for the 3rd or the 4th year.
I think so, yeah. And the other thing, too, about where it's located now out by the high school, you can see it from so far away that there's, a lot of people just watch it from their backyards or their front steps, or I know businesses have been great about letting people park in their lots and things out there, so good viewing point from a lot of areas out there. So we'll be back to wrap up Ask the Mayor here in just a moment. We're back to wrap up our Ask the Mayor program today with Beatrice Mayor Bob Morgan. And maybe just a couple items to touch on before we wrap it up here. Budget calendar coming up pretty soon. That will come before the council, and a presentation of the departments and all that, and the capital budget that you do for improvements. So what's kind of the schedule on that?
That usually happens in August. Right now, I believe for the next 2 weeks, the city administrator, Tobias, will be meeting with all the department heads, and of course Hannah as well as our finance director, going over. Capital's already been done, but now they're going over operations, seeing where people are for, all the operational costs for each one of their departments, and looking what they need and what they don't need. Yeah. I think we've always somewhat been really good about having what I would call a zero-based budget. Zero-based budget, if you don't know that, it really is asking. You think, well, zero-based, that means there's no increase. Well, no, that's not the case. But if you look at a budget for 3 years and you've got $10,000 in it, and over those 3 years you've never used it, it's probably time to lower that one and put the money someplace else, which again kind of helps you get to that zero if you can. We know there's going to be increases. Costs of things continue to go up. But, they will go through those meetings and then put together what the preliminary budget will look like, and I'll probably sit down in July and take a look at that before we move it into August to the council.
And final approval of budget's usually in September, isn't it?
It is.
Toward the middle, because I know you have to get valuation figures certified and things. And the tax rate of the city this year regarding property taxes, do you have a feel right now for where that will end up? Or
I don't. I always hear a lot of feedback when people's valuations come out on their properties, and again, that's a county thing that's not a city thing. But I also know then there is the protest process, and so I think roughly August 15th is when we'll get the valuation numbers, and then we can kind of calculate what that rate would be.
Yeah, and if I remember right, your tax rate, hasn't it always been somewhere in the 20s or like 25,
it's
26 or somewhere thereabouts?
It hasn't fluctuated a whole lot.
Yeah, and thankfully you have the use of local sales tax as another revenue source, which has held up pretty well over the years.
It has. It has.
Yeah. Maybe just to wrap up today, I keep forgetting how long your term is left. How many years do you have?
My last meeting will be the first meeting in December of 2026.
Okay.
Not that I'm counting.
Yeah. It's a little red dot on the calendar there. So for the future, I don't know, pick 5, 10 years, any real challenges you see for municipalities coming, or is it just, you continue to plug away, try to plan well into the future for the community? Or
I think we touched on the one thing that at least I would like to get started on, and that was the power. I think we've done a good job over the years. We've taken a look at a second source or route for water. We got the new wellhead property and the wellhead protection to keep clean water for the 58% of the population that we get water to. So when you think about the two things that are really going to be important, is basically going to be water and power. So we've solved the water issue, and now we need to figure out what do we put in place starting actually now, so that in 2032 we know that we've secured the city of Beatrice with good solid power at a fair rate. And so I think that is probably the next thing that we're going to be looking at. The two things that I think I would like to make sure I get started is on the power issue and the cash reserve issue. I think fiscal responsibility is always going to be important because, as we know, inflation hasn't really ever backed off. It may get low, but we also see a period of time that ebbs and flows where it goes back up. So we have to make sure that we are planning for the future financially and giving the city the best opportunity it can with water and power.
Sometimes the big unknown, too, is the external factors from government from higher levels, what is done and how they affect cities, whether that's legislature, Congress, whatever the case may be.
Right.
But a lot of that's not really under your control. You're kind of a creature of the next level up. You have to deal with what is handed to you. In a way.
We are, and so that's that's why it's really important to be prudent with our funds now.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Bob, thanks very much for doing this program. We want to keep having you in and having department heads in and everything. It'll just be a slightly better looking guy on this side of the mic that will be doing the program.
For those of you that don't know, the behind the scenes here, thing I appreciate about Doug is he's always made this easy. He asks good questions. He's asked the right questions. He's got things filled out. So, if you think, well, gee, how come that guy can just talk like that? It's only thanks to Doug, who helps me manage each half hour.
Well, and I thank all the mayors that have been in, including yourself, and all the department heads, too, because everybody's such a wealth of knowledge and knows their craft really well and knows how to explain things to guys like me, so I don't sound like a complete fool when I ask questions, but I really appreciate the help too about the city and department heads. Council members, we've had a few on in the past, but it kind of goes more toward the daily operations of the city.
It does. So, I mean, the department heads of the daily. I always say we're oversight. We're not management. And I guess I'll put a plug in early. As you know, there are some people who are announcing candidacies. So as always, we'll have 4 councilman spots open for 2026, and then there'll be the mayor's race in 2026. So, it really, you learn a lot, and you really help the city. So if you're saying, I don't know if I really want to do that, I was in that boat. I'm glad I've put in my time. I think it's well worth it, and I think it's really good for the city to get different views.
All right. Have a happy 4th of July.
All right. Thanks, Doug.